She gave up everything to raise her only son, but when he became rich, he left her to die in poverty. Her name was Mama Ifeanyi. She was an old woman who had tasted both joy and sorrow in life, but nothing ever broke her spirit the way her only son Ifeanyi did. She had suffered, labored, and denied herself everything just to raise him, and when he finally became rich, he turned his back on her. This was her story. Mama Ifeanyi married young, but her husband died when their son was just 3 years old. From that moment, life became very hard for her. There were days she went to bed hungry, just so a little boy could eat. She worked in people's farm from morning till night. She carried heavy bundles of firewood on her head and sold them in the market to buy him books. Many people mocked her. They said, "Why are you suffering yourself for only one boy? He will forget you tomorrow." But she refused to listen. She always told herself, "My son will grow up and take care of me. He is my only hope." Ifeanyi was a smart boy in school. His teachers always praised him. He would come home and say, "Mama, one day I will be a big man. I will build you a house." Each time he said that, Mama Ifeanyi's tired heart found new strength. She worked even harder just to make his dreams come true. When Ifeanyi finished secondary school, there was no money for university. Mama Ifeanyi almost gave up, but she sold the small piece of land her husband left behind. She used the money to send her son to school. People laughed at her. They said, "Mama Ifeanyi, you are destroying yourself. That boy will forget you." But she smiled and replied, "A child does not forget the breast that fed him." University was not easy for Ifeanyi. Sometime he called his mother and said, "Mama, I've not eaten since yesterday." Her heart broke each time she heard that. She would go and borrow money just to send to him. Sometimes she carried people's heavy loads in the markets for small coins. Sometimes she fetched water for construction workers. Her body became weak and old before its time, but she never stopped. Finally, Ifeanyi graduated. The day he wore his graduation gown, Ifeanyi cried tears of joy. She knelt down and thanked God. She said, "My suffering is over. My son will never allow me to suffer again." But she was wrong. After graduation, Ifeanyi struggled for some time. He searched for jobs, but nothing came. Mama Ifeanyi continued to encourage him. She told him, "My son, your time will come. God will not waste my sacrifice." One day, Ifeanyi got a job in the city. It was not a big job, but it paid enough for him to survive. Mama Ifeanyi was very happy. She said to everyone in the village, "My son has started working. Very soon he will come for me." Years passed. Ifeanyi worked hard and got promoted. Soon he became a manager. From there, he joined bigger company. He started making real money. Before long, Ifeanyi became one of the richest young men in the city. He bought cars. He wore expensive clothes. He moved into a mansion. He started dining with big men and powerful politicians. But in the middle of all his success, he forgot his mother, the woman who carried firewood to train him, the woman who borrowed money and went hungry just to see him succeed. At first, Mama Ifeanyi would call him. Each time she called, he sounded busy. Sometimes he would not pick her calls. Sometimes he would promise to call back, but never did. She missed her son. She longed to see him. She said to her neighbors, "Ifeanyi is now a big man. Very soon he will come and take me to live with him." But days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months, and months turned to years. Ifeanyi never returned. Mama Ifeanyi's small mud house began to fall apart. Rain leaked through the roof. She slept on a mat that was older than her son. Yet, she kept telling herself, "My son will not forget me. One day, he will come for me." But Ifeanyi has already changed. He was ashamed of his poor background. He did not want his rich friends to know he came from a struggling village woman. He pretended his mother did not exist. One morning, Mama Ifeanyi woke up with a heavy cough. Her body shook as she tried to stand, but her legs were too weak. She had no money for medicine. She had no one to run errands for her. She sat on the floor of her mud house and whispered, "God, give me strength to see my son again." Her neighbors noticed her condition. They tried their best to help her, but they too were poor. Sometimes they brought her leftover food, sometimes they fetched water for her, but Mama Ifeanyi needed more than food. She needed care. She needed her son. Word spread quickly around the village. People said, "Call Ifeanyi. Tell him his mother is dying." One neighbor managed to reach him on a phone. He answered with pride in his voice. When they explained that his mother was very sick, he replied coldly, "I am busy. I will send money later." But no money came after. Days passed. Her sickness grew worse. Her body became very thin. Her bones sharp under her wrinkled skin. She lay on her old mats, staring at the roof that leaked when it rained. Her lips trembled as she prayed, "God, please don't let me die without seeing my son's face." Every sound of footsteps outside made her heart leap. She thought it was Ifeanyi coming through the door, but it was always someone else. Sometimes it was a child playing. Sometimes it was a neighbor checking in. Never a son. One evening, when the sky turned red with sunset, Mama Ifeanyi called the little children of the compound. Her voice was weak, but her eyes still carried love. She said, "If you ever see my son, Ifeanyi, tell him I will never stop praying for him. Tell him I suffered hunger for him. Tell him I carried wood, I fetched water, and sold myself to pay for his future. And tell him I forgave him before I died." Tears rolled down the faces of the children, though they did not fully understand her words. That night, Mama Ifeanyi closed her eyes. The village fell silent. By morning, she was gone. News of her death spread quickly. The villagers shook their heads and said, "That is what happened when a child forgets the breast that fed him." Some wept. Some cursed Ifeanyi for abandoning his mother. But all agreed that no wealth could replace a mother's love. When Ifeanyi finally heard the news, he was sitting in a luxury restaurant. He was surrounded by friends, eating and drinking. His phone rang. When he was told, "Your mother is dead," the glass of wine slipped from his hand. For the first time in many years, his heart shook. He rushed to the village in his expensive car. When he arrived, the village refused to greet him. They stood aside and watched with cold eyes. He walked into the small compound and saw the fresh mud of sand that covered his mother's grave. His leg failed him. He fell to the ground, beating his chest. He cried bitterly, "Mama, Mama, I am sorry." But it was too late. Tears could not bring her back. Money could not buy back her life. Regrets could not erase her pain. The villagers whispered among themselves. Some said, "Now he cries." But where was he when she was alive? Others said, "A child that forgets his mother's suffering will never find peace." From that day, Ifeanyi had everything money could buy, but peace left his heart forever. He could buy mansions, but he could not buy forgiveness. He could buy cars, but he could not buy his mother's prayer. Every night he lay in his mansion, surrounded by riches, but his soul was empty. And in the silence of the night, he always heard his mother's voice, the same voice that once told him, "My son, one day you will be a big man." Now it's echoed in his ears as a painful reminder, because a mother's love never dies. but a child's betrayal leaves a wound that never heals. The end. Thanks for watching. If you do enjoy my story, please hit the subscribe button. See you in my next story. Bye for now.